Good morning. It's the 11th of November 2025 and it's spilling rain. We have some sort of a storm and it's raining all day from about 3 a.m. this morning and it's still doing it and no sign of a let up. Big flood in the river here in rural Ireland. The temperature is not bad. It's quite, I don't know what it is, about 12 degrees centigrade. Now, responses, and I'll just responses here. Responses. To various things. The BBC, Joe Finnegan, John Gibbons, and the church. I think I'll deal with the church first. Now, it's very important to understand what I'm really about, if you look at everything I say and do, is to stay in the middle of the road. When Hitler, if you're in Germany, when Hitler was going mad, you stay where you are. And if it's getting so bad, get out of there. Or if they're gone mad to the left, if it's all love and dove and John Lennon and all that and all you need is love, get out as well or stay where you are. That's what I'm about. It's the common sense view, the sensible view, not the somebody gets a big notion, somebody gets hysterical. Hysteria should have no place in policy making. Hysteria is for if there's a dance competition and somebody wins it or your daughter wins it and then you get hysterical, or when your county team is winning in the football or something. You get a bit happy, that's all right. But for general policy, you think everything out. And you realise that many real good ideas are just over the top. They can't be achieved. And in history, you look at the examples of what was achieved. The invention of the steam engine relieved a lot of hassle, a lot of hard work and a lot of drudgery and made life easier and let the population expand as well. Same with the railway train and the steam trains, etc. Okay, so Henry Ford took on the motor industry and look what he did. So that's the thing. But for every Henry Ford, there's 1,000 wannabes. 1,000 wannabes. And I went over to a gig in Castlebar in Mayo years ago, and Pat Rabbitte was the Minister for Justice. And this fellow was brought on to talk about building a pump storage facility 12 miles inland in County Mayo, where he'd pump seawater up and he'd let it run out to generate electricity. And he got a boola bus. Oh! And I said, you're mad in the head. And Pat Rabbitte was as thick as a bull. And I went up and I met Pat Rabbitte and I told him in Dublin with his two advisors, that's crazy. Don't even think of that. And go and do the proper assessment. And he got up and he reminds me of this. Do you remember the Croppy Boy? This fellow went to confession, but the priest was a yeoman captain. The priest stood up and to my surprise stood a yeoman captain with fiery eyes and he looked vicious. But Pat Rabbitte is a bloody blithering idiot. And he was a Labour Minister for Energy. Nobody ever attempted to build his ridiculous idea. And there they were, all on the one tune, except me. I said it's wrong. There are a few people on my side. But this is what happens when we get hysterical. Oh, a hub. A data hub and all hubs. We should keep our heads down. We're a small island nation. We have certain things going for us and we should keep our heads well down. We all went mad. They all voted for the EU, but several voted no. Now it's a war machine we're in. It's not only a trading thing, it's a war machine that we're now participating in. But one of the things here about the church is Kathleen Curran says, and she's a good subscriber of mine, and people misunderstand my situation for the church. I am backing the church. I'm backing the Christian churches, all of them in Ireland. Even though I'm a Roman Catholic and I'm not going to be going anywhere else for now. What would happen to the babies if the church had not stepped in? Those babies were lucky to have got homes in America as the families were not able to support an unmarried mother. I do not agree, Kathleen. I do not agree. There was plenty of ability to support them. But they didn't want them because the church said it was scandalous. The church was trying to punish women who got pregnant. Nowadays, they don't do that. Are we any worse off? Our problem today is not that our young girls, and I would advise young girls to get proper advice, in the age of the pill and contraception, there really is no excuse for getting pregnant. I don't care what age people are. And if you want to show this to your daughters or your cousins or whatever, you shouldn't be getting pregnant. There are contraceptives available. It's a sign of a low life in many ways, if it's not suiting you. However, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't get a woman, maybe reaches 25, I'd like to have a baby. That's the best. But the point is, we need as many babies as we can get, and all our babies never did us any harm. Where did our babies matter? There was one man I knew, not say where he was, he's dead and gone, and his girlfriend got pregnant, and there was scandal, and he used to walk up the road to get a bus to go to see her in the hospital, and they took the baby from her, and that baby was reared in some kind of a home. That baby, the reason she couldn't keep her baby was not that she was so poor. I'd say the family might have, because he was a local lad and she was a local girl. It was that the church scandal people, and the priest did come out and take girls on the bikes and in cars and pull them away. And there are recorded cases where fathers got out and said, no, get yourself the hell out of here. And those stand-up rows on the front lawn of houses, where the priest demanded the girl and the baby, and the parents said no. That's a fact. That is wrong. That doesn't mean that I dump out the baby with the bathwater, excuse the pun. They were unable to support them. We can bloody well support Africa and Bangladesh, and we can't support our own few babies. Times were very different and hard. Well, I agree with that. I do agree with that. So don't take my angry response as a criticism of Kathleen. I want to keep her here because I'm a better friend of the church than a lot of them. A friend in need is a friend indeed. There was a priest down in Cavan one time, out in St. Patrick's College, and he was walking out from the town one Saturday night. He wasn't on the town. He was just in getting something, and he was very, very religious, very, very religious. And he was walking out to the church, to the college. And in Cavan, St. Patrick's College is on the right, and a little further on is the Loreto College. And there were two nuns in the college, and they were in, and they were walking out, and they kind of suggested, well, should it all, he was walking, they'd catch up with him and talk to the priest, two nuns. And he turned on them, and he says, you're following me, and you have impure ideas, you have impure intentions. Bloody idiot. And they started laughing, and they told it. This type of extreme hysteria is not in anybody's interest. You can follow the teaching of Christ without that. And indeed, the nuns scrubbing floors in convents was a bit over the top, in my honest opinion. Okay? So times are very difficult, but if it's the church made them difficult, God bless the good nuns that educate us. Nobody's denying that. Nobody's saying that. I was at a priest-run school, and I left it and I went to the tech, and I enjoyed the tech, and I didn't enjoy the priest-run school. But they done their best, and they did. The thing about all of this teaching in Ireland was we did learn, and I was taught by a Gaeilgeoir master who was very cruel with the stick, but I still learned a lot of how to count, and he was good at that, and how to read. He was good at that. So I'm not condemning everybody. I'm saying that the pendulum now has swung the other way, where we have, I think, 6,000 abortions a year in Ireland. It's swung the other way, instead of keeping middle of the road. That's my point. Now, I have my laptop here, and it was put in by somebody else about Dr. Noel Brown. I had to mention him because he was important. Dr. Noel Brown, you'll get him there on YouTube and on Wikipedia, sorry. Now, the thing about him is, there was unbelievable TB, tuberculosis, in Ireland. There were sanatoriums, or whatever you call it. There was one reported in Longford where there was a stream running down, a concrete stream, to carry where they could dump the slop buckets, the chamber pots. And it was a terrible thing. Consumption, it was known as. And it'd get into a house and it'd kill everybody in it. Desperate deaths. Tuberculosis. I suspect it came from the cattle milk. Nowadays, there's very strict testing for tuberculosis with cattle. I can attest to that. Okay, but there was, and Dr. Noel Brown was the Minister for Health, I think, and he did a lot of good work there. He did, and he was not opposed by the main government at the time. The rest of them, he was a coalition partner, or whatever he was. Look it up yourself. But he did all right. But then he turned to something else. He turned to a mother and child bill. And the mother and child bill gave mothers, certain help, certain state help that today would be considered the normal run-of-the-mill. But at that time, they weren't. Now, there was pensions in the 60s, because I used to collect the pension for some old people coming from school. I'd go in and collect the pension and bring it and give it to them. I might get a 3-penny piece, and I might not. I remember, I think it was 7 and 6 a week. So I remember collecting the pension in the late 60s, but apparently there was nothing for mothers, no prenatal or postnatal, any of that stuff. Nothing. There was children's allowance, I think. I think there was. We'll not go there. I never remember there being no children allowance. But Dr. Noel Brown tried to bring in a mother and child bill, and it was opposed by the church because they wanted it only to apply to married women, not single women. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. I condemn that rule. That was wrong. I know I'm going to lose subscribers. I still say it was wrong. And he had to go. A couple of years later, it was in anyway. The church should have stayed to hell out of it. That doesn't mean that when all this was going on, there weren't a lot of priests and bishops who didn't agree with it. It was the radicals that got up, just the same as the radicals are running the Labour Party, the American Democratic Party, the Irish Labour Party, to some extent Sinn Féin, not so much Fianna Fáil, not so much Fine Gael, but they're still there. And of course, when the Greens was in, it was the tail wagging the dog, and we got the mess that we're in with energy and everything else. So that's my story. We have to acknowledge this. It also has to be said, and there's a thing going on now with the Pope and the pro-cathedral. The reason the pro-cathedral, there's no cathedral in Dublin, because the Christ Church and St. Patrick's Cathedral were the Roman Catholic cathedrals before Henry VIII, and some say he was a great fella. I think the reality of Henry VIII is he was a gluttonous old dirty yoke, but he did pull Britain away from Rome and let Britain become an empire that mightn't have happened if they had stayed linked to Rome. I think that's the general view that Henry did, and he built big ships and all that, and then he was somebody took over after him. He died from gluttony essentially. But the thing about it is that those two cathedrals were, is the word sequestrated? Taken over anyway. So that left the Dublin with no cathedral. So they had to come up from that, and the present site of the Pope Cathedral was chosen because it was in what's the word? Obscure. It wasn't easily seen. And that's all right. So the Pope has now been asked to designate a cathedral for Dublin. But anyway, that's another day's work. But the point about it is, you see, when you held down the Catholic Church with penal laws and everything, you held it down, and suddenly there was violent revolution, of which Michael Collins and the Pro Cathedral was where his funeral service took place. Michael Collins was the chief architect of that because he had brains. He had it up here. But it wasn't that unnatural that when the new state took over, it was going to imprint Catholicism with force. That's my objection. Religion should be pastoral, and it very much is pastoral now. You go to a funeral service now in Ireland, either the Protestants and the Catholics or whatever make, and it's a very, very personal, nice, emotional type of a thing. And they celebrate the life of the deceased and his family, and they do a really good job, in my opinion. So I support all this. It's not that I'm against them. I kicked up a racket when our government denied Asi Bibi, a Catholic woman sentenced to death in Pakistan. and was refused entry into Ireland because it would offend Muslims. So I've made my position very clear on that, and unless somebody can convert me, I won't change. Now, on 15 minutes, I go on to the BBC. The talk is now, I made my video. There's no need to rehash what I've said. But the talk is now that Trump is going to sue. You know how much? 1 billion. I don't know, is it dollars or pounds sterling? And he's going to sue, apparently, in his home state of Florida. You see, the BBC published this in the United States. And I've made it clear, and I've listened to a few experts on the subject, and I think he can. You can sue in any state as far as I know. And don't forget, as I said, Sean Quinn was sued by an American company in Ireland. But either way, nobody denies, and you're supposed to use the word allegedly. Some of them are using allegedly. Look, nobody denies. They split the video. They give Trump's half speech and they give a totally different speech. They're caught on it. The Director General has gone, and the one that's in charge of the news is gone. So the question then is in Britain, will Trump push $1 billion? $1 billion will cripple the BBC, and he's ultimately suing the British people. And the fact is, even though a lot of British people hate him, there is a sizable amount of the population of Britain who are very fond of Mr. Trump, and Nigel Farage is a very close associate. And as you know, rightly or wrongly, I put my hand up. I'm a Greyhound supporter as well. I just like him as a character. I think he's all right. But he has his faults, and he's a bit ignorant of most things, but sure, who isn't? Anyway, what could happen is he might not push the 1 billion. So they'll have to settle. The legal fees will be another $1 billion. And they can't win, really. But they'll have to settle. So if they go to settle, what I would suggest Mr. Trump does is hold it for a while and demand by whatever legal means his best lawyers can get him, is a full information access to information for the BBC. All of the stuff they had printed on him. Who decided it'd be published? Now, there's a fact check in the BBC. It's under the spotlight. You have a fact check in Ireland. I took on RTE several times with complaints about their lies on the energy. And the last time I was on to them, it was an advertisement. It was some woman born in, I think, some place, Mozambique or somewhere. She hadn't a clue. She couldn't even talk English. So you won't win against RT. It's just ridiculous. And I have no doubt a complaint taken against BBC up to now would not be processed. They don't do that. So I think if Trump could get the full thing out and get someone to put it into a book, what actually happened, what actually took place, we'd find an awful mess. Now, let it be understood clearly from me, a farmer with cows. The Labour Party in Britain will not dump out the BBC. In no way. But that doesn't mean the next government might dump them out. I want to see them gone. RT has no useful purpose at the moment. Like, people who work there are entitled to a bit of a pension and all. I'm not that ridiculous. Some people do their very best. I mean, good newsreaders and all that. But still, you can't fix them, in my view. But if they can fix them, away they go. And they want to point me into it, I should fix them. Okay. Now, you want to see BBC and RT on climate, on renewable energy, on electric cars. Everything's lies. And in fact, I was talking to a person the other day who's a very good accountant, and he says, actually, what you're getting from the news and from the BBC and RTE is it's not news, and it's advertising. It's advertising. So if they long ago that keep the news and then the advertising would be separate, no, they're advertising and using the news to push the product, to push the general idea. You get what I mean? So they're actually marrying up advertising and news. Well, I hope Trump skins them and leaves them with nothing, $1 billion, and charge the British taxpayer. They voted for Starmer. But then, of course, the Tories are no good either. Will the British people turn to Reform UK? It's the only hope. There is no hope with any other party. Okay? Now, the thing about it is, if Trump doesn't go the whole hog, well, then the access to information and full disclosure of everything, and have it published and let it out. It's a great feather in his cap. It should change the opinion of some people, because the opinion in Ireland and Britain of some people whole of Trump is all formed by the mainstream media. People believe it. And now they're caught. And this vindicates me as well. In many ways. Many ways. Now, the next thing is about Joe Finnegan. He's the main anchor on Shannonside Northern Sound Radio. He's from Roscommon. I'll never be let on his channel anyway. His station is financed by Airgrid. Vested interest stay away. Not much possibility of getting a discussion on wind energy there. Not much chance. Anyway, he was on this morning as usual, and he pushes the mainstream narrative. He pushes the government's narrative. But there is an odd person getting in with an odd comment and giving him a bit of a dig. I quitted because he just wouldn't publish them. So there might be letting an odd one in. Anyway, I'd like a discussion with him. But he had a fella on this morning called John Gibbons. Now, I might get a bit of help from some of you people. John Gibbons is, I'll just check him here. So it says here, John Gibbons activist. John is an environmental campaigner. I am the same. I'm an environmental campaigner. And I bet you I know a lot more about environmental law than he does. And the founder of the climatechange.org website. Okay, and I'm the founder of Real True Education, Not Fake News. And now my job is to orchestrate, a lovely word, a clash with Mr. Gibbons and flush him out. Flush him out. That's what I'm on. I hereby declare war on John Gibbons. War. Now, come on, meet me and debate it. Well, we can look at this climatechange.ie website. So we'll have a look at that. He also co-founded the healthcare publishing and communication specialist Med Media Group. He must be some kind of a doctor or something. Anyway, if any of you want to look him up and get me more detail, what I want to know is he getting public money to spread his climate change hysteria? That's what I want to know. But I don't know whether he is or not. I'd like to know. We'll be finding out more, and I'm going to buy his book. Don't buy his book. I'll buy his book. It's $18.99. I don't mind buying one, and we'll go to dissect it word by word and see what's in it. For 2 years, Gibbons contributed weekly to the Irish Times. Ha 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 ha! The Irish Times! Kevin Backhurst, the British-born Director General of RTE, Irish national broadcaster, said that the Irish Times is the only proper paper of record. They're a lying crowd of villains. They've been lying about windmills and climate change since I started looking into this business. They're a biased fake news medium. That doesn't mean everything they print is not true. There's some of it true. But they have a bias in favour of the Irish government and the Green Party and all of these. They're not conservatives. They have nothing about religion, about abortion, about anything. And I see nothing about mass migration in them either. So they're a bloody laugh. Anyone that buy the Irish Times, you buy it for certain things. There might be an article you might want to see. And they keep telling us about how wind energy is bringing down the cost of electricity. You'd have longer legs on the lad with the stilts at the seaside in the summer. Lies that would walk. Anyway, he was with the Irish Times. Now, he was for 2 years with the Irish Times, analysing aspects of climate change and sustainability. Now, the next thing we want to know, what is his qualification? Is he a qualified climatologist? Anyone that can help? I don't know. It doesn't give it here. What's his qualification? Or is he another Bill Gates and Greta Thunberg who got lucky? Is he getting money from the government? Anyway, I'm on his house, big time. My blood is up with him now. I've never heard of him until this morning. Somebody rang me to tell me he was on. Right? I might ring them back now before I finish this video and find out what exactly he said. His work also appeared in The Guardian and the Sunday Tribune. Well, the Sunday Tribune's gone. That was an Irish paper. It's gone. The Guardian, mad woke. He not in the Telegraph, I'll tell you. Now, citing evidence of global media coverage of climate change in 2010 fell to levels levels not seen since 2005, Gibbons argued that there is a similar trend in Ireland. He accuses Irish newspapers and radio television of giving too much coverage to anti-science. Whose science? Whose science? What about Mr. Lamb that wrote a book on climate? What about John Edrington who wrote a book on renewable energy? What about Article 3.2 of the SCA directive? Ever hear of that one? He has argued that given too much coverage to anti-science, climate deniers, far right climate deniers, and failing to convey the gravity of the threat. What threat? Al Gore said that polar ice caps would be gone. Are they gone? No, though they're the same as ever. Failing to convey the gravity of the threat, making readers and viewers apathetic. Now, apathetic has several meanings. It means showing a lack of interest, not getting worked up about it. Apathetic. Let's see, can I think of a better word myself? I would say the better word for apathetic would be failing to get hysterical. I have no time for hysteria. Hysteria is for sport. He has been critical, in particular, he's been critical of the stance taken on the issue of global warming by broadcaster Pat Kenny. Sure, he's mad global warming. I tried to get on his programme and he would not let me to explain the whole renewable energy boondangle and falsehood. So, Gibbons has argued that global economic recovery will be constrained by energy shortage. There's no energy shortage. That's because the start of the war with Russia. Europe and Ireland, up to a few years ago, had all the coal, oil and gas we could ever consume, and the EU has agreed to buy it from Trump now, from America. So he argued wrong. The tightening on fuel now is because of the war that started with Russia. And Germany has all his windmills and solar panels, and they're still finished. The industry is gone, and so is Britain. So this idea, I'm sure I didn't come to it yet, that he claims that windmills are solving it, that is idiotic. That is idiotic in this day and age. Gibbons has argued that global economic recovery will be constrained by energy shortages, and he points out that the Irish economy, with its relatively high per capita use of energy, so we're all very busy. How do you expect to make a living? How do you expect companies to do? How do you expect Moffat's engineering with the Moffat Mountie, a global product, McHale Engineering? You expect that they can't have energy to make their products and weld and do all that with its per capita use of energy. And it's higher than Mozambique, because they wouldn't get up with their arses there. They wouldn't get out of the bed in the morning. That's the reality. Is particularly vulnerable to peak oil. Plenty of oil if we could get it. They won't let it in. They have banned it from the EU. But we still have plenty. The anticipated decline in global oil production, there's no anticipated. Venezuela has so much of it that the Americans are thinking of invading them to hold on to it. Now, I'll be getting this fella's book, and I'm going to buy a saddle and ride him from here to Cork. I mean, ride his ideas and hit him everywhere. I want a debate. He'll be watching this, and I'm on your house, John Gibbons. Now, I just contacted my source on the phone there, who listens to the radio. And Gibbons was on Joe Finnegan this morning. And he was giving out about America not being at the COP30 boondangle. Joe Finnegan didn't ask him how much carbon they emitted going over there. But he was obviously in favour of those who went there, and he wants all this climate stuff, a big clampdown now. Carbon taxes and all the rest. But he said, according to my source, and if I'm wrong, I will withdraw this, that President Donald Trump, it's no wonder he said he wasn't at it, because he's a 3-time convicted criminal. Now, can anybody tell me what Donald Trump was convicted of? Note the word convicted. That means you go through the legal process and you're convicted. You're convicted. There's several people convicted in the Irish courts. You read it, they're convicted. And following conviction, there is a sentence of some kind. I've looked up that on the internet, and all I get is indictments. Indictments are nothing at all. In Ireland, supposing that the Gardaí or the Revenue or something, or even the Revenue Commissioner say to me, or the Customs say to me, your van is imported and we're going to charge you. You didn't pay the duty on it. Well, it's somebody has to decide to prosecute, usually the Director of Public Prosecutions, at the behest of whatever agency it is, the Gardaí or the Customs or whatever. So he can decide to prosecute. But if they prosecute me, which I'd say they'd love to do, it has to be for a criminal offence. So he said Trump was convicted 3 times of crimes, criminal. And I can find nothing of him being convicted of any criminal offence. And indeed, the indictments that there was preferred against him were never convicted. And they're civil offences. And it looks like this fella doesn't understand the difference between criminal and civil. So he pushed this out on RTE. And that has the hallmark of a fella that's getting something of the state to push it. On radio, not on RTE, on Shannonside Northern Sound, which is the local radio. Now, is there a complaint that could be lodged there? I'm very busy. But that's what he said. This morning, this is the 11th of November, on Joe Finnegan. Joe Finnegan didn't counter him. What would you expect when you have the president a convicted criminal? And that is a lie. He was not convicted of anything, and anything he was were civil offences. There were civil type offences. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong and post underneath. 3 times he says he's definitely not convicted 3 times, and I don't think he's convicted at all. So this is what this was. So I have to get after this guy. This guy is I'm ready for him. Oh, we'll get the book and we'll go through every word of it, and I'll bet you it's full of lies. I don't know yet. Anyway, that's this John Gibbons. He's a new lad on the site. He's around a while, but I can't watch all these buckos around the place. So, folks, that's my video there on 32 minutes on my responses to what's taking place. I want it to be clearly understood. If I am going past a window and I see a man with a big knife and he stabs another fella in the back, and I know that his name is Johnny Malarkey, and I know the lad he stabbed is Michael Fitz Thompson, and I read in the paper the following day that Michael Fitz Thompson is dead, it's reasonable to assume that it wasn't a play or a bit of acting for a film. And if I go up to the chapel and hear the priest or the clergyman or the minister giving a bit of a talk about how great he was, it's reasonable to assume he's bloody dead and he was killed. And if I say that, and the fact that the man that killed him might be a lovely person, and the fact that the lad that was killed might have been a villain out of hell, doesn't affect the point that he was killed and murdered. And it's the same with the governments and the church. The fact that I make criticism of what they were doing, and I lived through their excesses. Some of them were half mad. And this trait was through the whole thing. I was in the Garda Síochána, and the church had a big input into it. And I was down in Dowra one time, and a man came in and reported a neighbour for stealing sheep on him. And I investigated, and I proved he did steal the sheep. And I made out a file and I sent it into the superintendent with everything ready, and the priest landed into me and demanded that I withdraw it. The priest in Glangevlin. Don't know where he is now. And I wouldn't withdraw it, and I sent it in, and there was a war in Dowra Garda Station between the Guard Martin and the priest. And I think the sergeant was there and didn't bother getting involved. So there was interference straight away. They wanted it settled by the priest, but it wasn't the priest's role. And I was challenging the role of the priest in settling and getting involved in criminal cases. The file went into the superintendent, and the superintendent refused to prosecute. So the priest won, but he didn't win over me. So that doesn't mean for 1 minute that the ordinary church is wrong. There's a priest over in Mayo, and the Catholic Church in Maynooth tried to drive him out because he wasn't into all this old gay stuff and whatever, Tyndall or Gindle or Grind or whatever it is. And they told him he wasn't suitable. And there was a priest in Carrickmacross, and he was on the telly, and he was all anti-abortion. He was very conservative, but that was what he believed. He believed he was teaching the word of Christ. He was horsed out too. There was a bishop in Monaghan, and he was always raving on about things. And there was a priest in Clontibber. I used to go to mass in it, and he was drawing the whole crowd out, and not just name him. And they shifted him to Shantana. You don't escape Val Martin with cows. If you get the wrong side of him, you're going to get the works. But it's a big mistake to think that I don't have great admiration and sympathy for many of the good priests. I don't care what they do on their days off, who they sleep with or what they sleep with. If they do a good job and bring comfort to people with their dead ones in their old age. The priest used to come here to my old grandmother long ago and give her Holy Communion. And I siphoned the petrol out of his car to use for an old car that was down the field. And I regret that. I do a wee bit of charity. I was wrong. The priest used to come out, and we had an old car down the field, and we'd drink petrol, and we had a wee tank beside the engine, because if we put it in the tank, you get nowhere, and we'd go banging around the field. It was in Austin, Somerset, big column drive, and a roof on it, and all of the children, we'd be flying around, but we had no petrol, and we couldn't take my father's petrol, so we'd siphon out the priest's car, and the doctor's car, and then I'd be, well, when he'd go, we'd be afraid he wouldn't get out the road. That was a sin. I'll go to hell. Well, I mightn't because my granny would give him £5 anyway, and it was usually taken out of my mite box. So I've no grievance over that. I hope it'd be a terror to go to hell over a drop of petrol. We're devils. So that's the situation there. I'm for the church. I'm for the Catholic Church. I'm for the Church of Ireland. And even though the past happened with Henry VIII and all that, what can they do about it now? That's not the problem the church has. It's not what cathedral they have. It's keeping people on side and keeping them relevant in our tradition. And understand there's no such thing as a religious vacuum. If we don't keep our Christian values, you know who's coming down the road. And you know who the lefty cultural Marxists crave. They crave the Muslims. And they're cutting the heads of people for being homosexuals. And the woke crowd here love them. Can't get enough of them. Riddle me that. I rest my case. We'll see you back. Time to get something done. The winter's coming on. Bye-bye. Comment underneath. Give me plenty of flack. I'll not rub out anybody. And if you can get any few more to subscribe and get me up to 12,000 subscribers. Once I get there, I'm going to shut down the subscription. I don't want too many, because I do not want everyone to be as smart as us. We're a smart community here, and we can't have the whole country. If everyone's as smart as us, there's no point in us being smart. Bye-bye, 38 minutes, a long video, but I hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye, thank you.